the situation in Palestine is obviously very bad.
Yeah.
It's been very bad for a long time. There's lots of bombings going on right now. Mm-hmm. The IDF is not treating innocent Palestinians very well whatsoever. No. It's a horrible crisis, as we'll get into even more this episode. But I want to take a moment to admire the bloodthirstiness of our own American conservatives right here in the great United States.
Okay, yeah, take it home for a little bit before we talk about everything abroad.
Lindsey Graham, a GOP senator, basically said that it's a religious war and the IDF should level Gaza if they have to in their own self-defense.
Just because it's a religious war?
I guess. Also something Hamas believes, funny enough, that it's a religious war. Nikki Haley said we should not be telling the IDF to practice restraint. We shouldn't be saying that to them.
We should never be saying that. Despite the UN, the WHO, every fucking humanitarian
international law.
Every other country in Europe saying that Israel should back off.
The most egregious offense was from Congressman Brian Mast from Florida, who wore an IDF uniform to the Capitol.
Oh,
he wore the uniform.
Stolen valor.
He wore the uniform of another country to the United States Capitol. Now, he did serve in the IDF for some time, but to wear the uniform of the IDF, a military that is currently killing innocent civilians, to the United States Capitol to show your support for them is crazy to me. The bloodthirsty levels are off the charts. Am I the only one that thinks that's fucking insane?
The stolen valor. Well, I guess not stolen valor because he served in the IDF.
This is him, by the way, in the IDF uniform.
Dude, that is nuts. Everybody was going crazy about the dress code 2 weeks ago, but nobody wants to talk about it now. Nobody wants to bring it up now.
Like the fact that you can just wear the uniform of another military that is currently doing war crimes against people to the U.S. Capitol, just show up in that is wild to me. I guess they can't enforce dress code because they don't have a speaker at the moment. But
that's true. But it's like, if a Democrat would have done that, every conservative would have been just fucking up in arms about it. Fox News would have gone crazy.
Oh, yeah. People are already losing their mind because Rashida Tlaib put up the Palestinian flag outside of her office, even though she is Palestinian.
Yeah. Yeah.
People lost their mind and said that she was siding with Hamas because she put the flag up outside of her office.
Crazy conflation, like we talked about last episode again, but holy shit, Brett, everything has been wild. Could you imagine if somebody pulled up with like a Ukraine fucking soldier uniform in Congress?
Uh-huh.
God,
like the cons already lost their minds when they saw like Republicans and Democrats with just the flag pin, the yellow and the blue for Ukraine. But yeah, imagine if like, I don't know, someone of Ukrainian descent just pulled up with the full Ukrainian military uniform. Like, okay, I'm in support of Ukraine in the Russo-Ukraine war, right? Mm-hmm. But the dick riding there is crazy.
It is.
I get, like, you served in the IDF before, but the dick riding is crazy.
I kind of wish he didn't.
Yeah.
I kind of wish it was just stolen valor. I kind of wish he just got an IDF uniform and pulled up in it. See, that would have been cool.
That's what I thought at first, because I looked into him, and he's an evangelical Christian. He's not even Jewish.
Huh?
So I was very confused. Apparently, he posted a statement saying, like, I'm the only current U.S. congressperson that's ever served in both the American military and the IDF. And I don't know what his history is there, but to me it doesn't really matter because they're doing war crimes against innocent people. Like right now, dropping white phosphorus on people, which we'll explain later.
Both of them historically
a war crime. And it's just like, what are we doing here, man? You don't serve there anymore. This is crazy.
Damn, he served in both of the militaries that have recently, within the last 20, 25 years, dropped white phosphorus on civilians.
Maybe he's just a fan of the white phosphorus. He saw it and he's like, I got to put my old fit back on.
So he said, why you got to bring race into it?
Oh, true.
Really? White phosphorus? That's more dangerous, really?
Anyway, I know we're going to get into Israel-Palestine again today, so I figured we could take a brief moment to appreciate how insane our own people are before talking about, war criminals like Netanyahu and all that.
Shit, if we're going to talk about how insane our own people are, I got to bring up this tweet that I saw. That's probably my favorite tweet now ever. Mm-hmm. It's from Elijah Schaefer. If you know who he is, you probably know what's coming up. He said, quote, I have confirmed the images of babies who were beheaded. It's actually worse. Some have their limbs removed, bodies cut into pieces, treated like garbage. Most inhumane thing I've ever seen. Whoever was responsible for this deserves to die. It's called abortion, and it's legal. come on now,
What
man.
a twist.
If I'm in a firing off Wicked Strays competition with a conservative, I'm not winning.
No, you're not.
I could
No
never.
chance.
I could never in my entire life come up with something crazy like that.
Oh my God.
He had the hook too. He's got the hook. I was reading it like, okay, yeah, people have been talking about this, whatever. What's this guy got to say about it? Who is Elijah Schaffer to confirm the images?
That's
and
what
then
I was thinking.
The last line, he just comes through and it sinks right in, and then everything else makes sense in hindsight.
No, it's crazy to me because when you first read that tweet, I'm thinking like, how could he confirm any of this?
Yeah.
Like, he's not a journalist. What is he doing? Or even if he is a journalist, what is he on the ground in
Bro's
Israel
in
right
Tel
now?
Aviv.
He's not him. You know what I'm saying? He's not that guy. And then to find out that it's a post about abortion is fucking wicked to me.
Conservatives like that just have such an insane ability to insert themselves into anything.
Yeah.
Dude hates women and their right to choose so much that he's just throwing it into an international conflict.
There's absolutely
nowhere.
there's no discipline when it comes to staying on topic, and you almost got to respect it.
Bro said, you know what's not being talked about enough right now? Abortion.
Wow, liberals, you don't want Palestinians to die? Well, you don't want Palestinian kids to die? Well, you don't seem to care much about abortion. What about those kids?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Totally different issues, totally distinct arguments, and bro just lumps them together. Again, I almost respect
and somehow he did it. He did it elegantly. Dare I say? He weaved them together. Oh my God.
Poetry even.
A seamstress, if you ask me.
Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. As indicated in the cold open, we're talking about Israel and Palestine again today.
Got to. And also an equally important issue, the House speakership.
More news for that of course, we have to talk about. And is that everything we got for this episode?
That's pretty
today?
much everything we got.
Quite a lot to talk about.
If anything else happened this week, it was massively overshadowed by, I don't know, the multitude of war crimes that Israel's committed. I had to fight through that news just to figure out that, well, I won't spoil it, but just to figure out that some people maybe won't be speaker anymore.
And it's crazy, because I'm trying to look back at like the history of conflicts between people in Gaza and Israel, and you can't find anything right now. Anytime you look up like anytime you're trying to look for any information that has happened previously that is not about the current conflict that's going on right now, all you get is just a litany of news stories about like, oh, Israel drops white phosphorus on Gazans, Israel kills 700 children. Like, you can't sift through any of it to get any other news, let alone just like news stories that aren't even related.
Yeah.
So it's tough out here, but we got two main topics today, both equally important, just as last week. But before we get into the episode, I'll remind you all, if you want to support the show, if you want to keep the lights on, and importantly, if you want to ensure that we can eat every week, head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's all up to you, really. It's all in your hands, your gracious, generous hands.
Yeah, the food on my table, the food on my plate, the food that gets to my belly every week, that's up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by deciding to not be a patron, you're starving us, really.
Yeah, that's
So
and you know what?
that.
I'm gonna leave it like that. You're starving us, and you're not becoming our real friend, like all our other patrons are. So
exactly.
I'll leave it there now.
Chew on that one for the rest of the episode. You can also support us by subscribing on YouTube, following us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of our other social medias.
Exactly.
We would really appreciate it.
And why don't you go ahead and maybe leave a 5-star review on Apple?
That's always an option.
Like these two wonderful people did right here.
Yep, we got the first one here from Froggy Gumdrop. Indoctrinate your friends and family today. They say, I automatically scroll past any TikToks of white guys with microphones, but I am so glad the algorithm kept pushing Head in the Office to my For You page. Hiddo is the first political podcast I've subscribed to and committed to listening to every week. I'm honored. Over the last month or so, I've been quickly working my way through all of the episodes on Spotify, and I genuinely look forward to hearing these two goofs relay the week's news in a humorous way that doesn't make me feel like the world is actively ending. Heading over to Patreon now to support the world's #1 geopolitical podcast, a model review.
Oh, a model review, and you got that last part fucking right. If I've learned anything in the last week of online discourse about Israel Palestine, it's that maybe it's not a bit anymore. maybe it's not a bit.
Yeah. If I've learned anything from the discourse that's been going on, it's that we're the only ones that don't want genocide.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It's only me. That's it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you got bloodthirsty people on the left who are the minority, of course, who don't have that much of a hand in geopolitics. So let's not overstate the power that they have.
They're just annoying.
But then it's people on the right that we've been known want to do genocide. They love genocide. They think about genocide. They fantasize to genocide. They get the rocks off to genocide. And it's very obvious right now.
So obvious. It's so obvious how many of you would have just supported the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh my God, dog.
It's crazy.
I've seen people with the take that they're like, imagine if any other country had tried to tell the U.S. to practice restraint after 9/11.
They should have. They absolutely should have.
They really should have.
I thought that in hindsight, everyone was like, eek. And we were trying to distance ourselves from that. As soon as it happened somewhere else, we're right back on our old bullshit. We relapse.
Republicans bring up Afghanistan all the time. That is a living example of our failure in the Middle East, the failure of the war on terror. Of course, there's also the Iraq war and all the other things that we did. If we didn't learn from that, and now we're saying, oh no, you don't need restraint when shit like this happens, what have we done? We've learned
back
nothing.
To I don't negotiate with terrorists. Come on now. Even Trump was saying some shit about how maybe it was a mistake to invade the Middle East. And if Trump's the guy coming through with some sense, maybe. And it's like, I thought we had got somewhere.
War on terror, like 1 million people died, dog.
Yeah.
1 million. Vast majority of those being innocent civilians in Afghanistan, Iraq, etc.
500,000 innocent civilians around in the Middle East.
Yeah, and our own soldiers, of course, died as well. Like the people that we were training to try to take over from the Taliban died. Like we massively fumbled this operation.
And none of it worked.
And it seems like Israel's going to do the exact same thing. And I think they recognize that it's not going to work. They just want to do the genocide.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've said Bibi and other right-wing party cabinet members in Israel have come out and just said that everyone in Palestine is an animal.
Yep,
and they should be treated like such. I can't remember the name of the guy, but there's this clip that's been going viral this past week. It happened a while ago of some Israeli cabinet member. He's one of the leaders in the right-wing crazy far-right parties like Bibi is, saying that the right a Jew's right to movement in Israel supersedes any Palestinian's right.
That's crazy. You're just
talking
saying
about the West Bank.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how in the West Bank there are roads that Palestinians just can't fucking drive on.
Yep.
It's 2023. So many issues that I thought we as humanity may have learned from. Everyone always tells you, we study history so we don't repeat it. But again, time and time again, we just fall back to being the worst versions of ourselves.
And we'll obviously get into it once we talk about Biden's response and more domestic responses to it. But it seems like everyone's like, oh yeah, apartheid bad. Everyone is equal. I love equality, except for this example. They get to be the exception. They can do whatever the fuck they want.
No, but you don't understand. But some Palestinians support Hamas. So it's okay. I understand that 40% of people in the Gaza Strip are under 15 years old, but some of the adults there, the little adults there, what adults are left there, kind of support Hamas. So it's okay. They're all terrorist sympathizers.
Hamas was elected in 2006 when the IDF pulled out. I know half of the Gaza Strip wasn't alive when that happened. But Hamas obviously represents all of them. Therefore, this action it's crazy.
I know there hasn't been an election there since they took over, but they must really represent the people.
Oh my God. Yeah, we'll get into all this. Let's read our last review here.
Yeah. Last review by Genevieve Miller. Real good takes. Yeah. Emphasis on that.
Oh, man.
I love the pod so much. I look forward to it every week. Finally, a podcast I feel has solid/consistent takes. I love to laugh at conservatives too, LOL. But on a real note, I really do appreciate you guys helping me stay informed.
Oh, well, you're so welcome.
And we appreciate you as a dear listener.
Yeah, it's not often that we get to restake our claim as #1 geopolitical podcast.
It's really not.
And it seems like the only time we really get to is when, I don't know, genocide's being done.
When we're the only people with a good right take?
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand how this happens.
We're the only people who inject nuance into the conversation.
Yeah. Anyways, I think it's time to get into the news then.
Yeah, it's been a fucking tumultuous week.
Very tumultuous week. Really, we're just revolving around Israel and Palestine. So I think we can just get into it. Last week, we covered a lot of the news and politics around what happened during and following the attack by Hamas on Israel. If you missed that episode last week, I would suggest you go and listen to that. Had a lot of good information that we'll pull from. We're not going to recite all of it here today. Yeah. We also included just a little bit of the history of the region, at least since 1948. So if you want to know all of that before going into this, you can take a listen to the 30-minute chunk that we talked about.
Supplemental to understanding what we'll talk about this week.
Yeah, a lot of this will just be updates on what's going on and critiques of the situation that we have.
Yes.
Of course. A lot has happened since last Monday, which is when we recorded the previous episode. So I think we can just get into it. Trigger warning for acts of incomprehensible evil.
Yeah, it's
really bad.
Nuts.
So as predicted, Israel has responded to the Hamas attack very disproportionately. The death toll for Palestinians has already risen above what the initial attack was.
It's about, I think,
Hamas.
2,640, as latest reported by the UN today on Sunday, about an hour ago, with about 9,600 people injured.
I was looking at news stories Friday, and it said that 1,500 Palestinians had been killed. So I guess we're just doubling that number quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since last Saturday, the Israeli Air Force has dropped more than 6,000 bombs on Gaza, according to The Guardian. Remember, of course, that Gaza is a piece of land just a bit larger than Manhattan in the Bronx and has a population greater than Manhattan, actually. Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world with 2.2 million people just about for that very small piece of land. It doesn't leave much room to go anywhere, is the point here. Almost 500,000 people have been forced out of their homes in Gaza as of recording this because of the bombings, and that number will continue to climb. I think it's already climbed since I wrote that number yesterday morning.
Had to have.
Bombs haven't just hit Hamas, of course, because that's not how bombs work. They've also hit schools, hospital infrastructure, other civilian locations. The bombings have killed somewhere, at the time of writing this, the bombings had killed somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 Palestinians, with a third of them being children. That number obviously has increased, will keep increasing. Some 6,000 are injured at this point, a number, of course, again, that will continue to climb. More Palestinians now, as we said, have died than Israelis had died from the initial attack, so a disproportionate response, clearly.
Yeah, and they're still going. They're still going like crazy. And we talked about last week how Israel had said they were going to shut off water and energy to the Gaza Strip. They did.
Yep.
Emphasis on the water shortage because it's not a drop. Not a single drop of water has gotten through in the last 8 days. Until today, where there has been some updates, Biden, in negotiations with Netanyahu, has gotten them to turn on water only to southern Gaza. And that's because on Friday morning, our time, Israel issued a warning for everyone in northern Gaza, like a 5 by 5 mile area, 1.1 million people, that they had 24 hours to pack their shit and leave. To completely evacuate, in preparation for what people think is going to be a ground invasion, as they've lined 300,000 soldiers up at the fence.
Yeah, I mean, seemingly preparing for an invasion that hasn't just happened yet.
Yeah.
And again, you have to keep in mind that the Gaza Strip is just bigger than the Bronx and Manhattan. Moving more than 1 million people from the top of that piece of land to the bottom is a mass death event. You can't do it without people just dying in mass.
And it's not just moving people just like over a flat stretch of land. They have to cross the Gaza River Valley. And there are 6 bridges, some of them being rope bridges. And there are reports that bombs have gone off on bridges. People don't know whether or not it's Hamas doing Hamas things or whether or not Israel has striked cars on the bridges, but shit's confusing right now. As you know how war goes, things like this, Twitter spreading misinformation.
Yeah, well, even if it was possible to move that many people quickly without a single one of them dying, Hamas is going to move with them. What difference does it make?
It's a non-issue, kind of. Like, what are you going to do?
It doesn't do anything, and that's why I think the IDF just ordered it, because they don't care if Palestinians die in that move.
No, not at all, because they want the plausible deniability of saying, well, we gave civilians time to evacuate. What do you want to do? And as of now, Sunday, what is that, like 48 hours after the initial order was given out, people are still moving from North Gaza, because 1.1 million people can't move that quick.
There's no cars, there's no planes.
Literally impossible.
There are cars, but not a lot of people can use them, and there's no fuel.
There's no fuel. There's no fuel because there's a complete blockade of anything going in.
Yeah.
They're fucked. How are you supposed to do any of that? Anyway, the UN, which is toothless, the WHO, every humanitarian organization ever, and leaders in, I think, Ireland and other European countries have all came out and said straight up that, hey, this is a humanitarian crisis.
Not Biden, though.
Not Biden. You cannot expect that many people to move that quickly under these conditions. There's no fucking water.
You can't do it, I mean, let alone, like, okay, say you're like, okay, adults can make the trip. There's kids.
40% of the population.
Yeah, half of the Gaza Strip is children, at least those that haven't been bombed out of existence yet. How do you expect them to move without water, without food, without the ability to get any of their life's necessities right now? As buildings are collapsing around them because the IDF continues to rain bombs down on them, what do you expect them to do other than just, well, die if they don't make it?
And it's also like, water was turned back onto southern Gaza where they want to go. That doesn't help them get there. That does not help anybody get there.
Again,
and that's
also
the biggest part of the problem right now.
Also, you are forcing people to leave their homes, right? Like you're kicking them out of their homes, which is the piece that I haven't really seen a whole lot of people talk about when it comes to the evacuation order. You're forcing people to leave their homes, presumably so you can continue to bomb it or you can invade and kill anybody that remains in the area. It's just like, you don't care about their well-being whatsoever. It's so obvious, and these are war crimes. So clearly war crimes.
And even though Israel is saying they've turned it on to southern Gaza. It's parts of southern Gaza, and that may not even be entirely true because as Reuters reports, quote, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told CNN on Sunday that Israeli officials told him they turned water back on in southern Gaza, but the spokesman for Israel's Energy and Water Ministry, Adair Dahan, said it was only flowing at a single location in southern Gaza.
Oh.
Aid workers in Gaza said they had not yet seen evidence the water was back, and a Gaza government spokesperson said it was not flowing. Throughout the day, Gazans lined up for hours outside of bakeries and jostled to buy bread as fears of food shortages loomed. Abdullah Abu Riz, y'all, if you've listened for a while, you know I'm awful at pronouncing anything, had come in at 7 a.m. hoping to buy food to feed her family and others sheltering in her home. Is this enough for 7 families and their children, she asked, holding a small plastic bag with bread. She was not able to buy more.
Yeah.
How can you look at that and say that it's their fault for not leaving?
It's their fault for not leaving. It's moral. The IDF is responding in an acceptable way, a morally permissible way. Of course not. And even if the water is back onto that one location for 2 million people because it's an open air prison and they can't leave.
Yeah.
What do you want them to do other than just die? Like they're committing war crimes.
Yeah, I want to say it's comically evil, but it's so far beyond that.
Yeah.
So far beyond. Dr. Doom wouldn't even do this shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's genocide, right? Everyone wants to do genocide except us. Even if you think this is an effective way to destroy Hamas or combat against Hamas, children are dying. Right. The children that did nothing wrong but be born on the opposite side of a fence that was established before they were even conceived. Those are the people that are suffering right now. And you could say, oh, Hamas is hiding behind them. And that might be true to some extent. But that doesn't mean Israel has to drop the bomb. That doesn't mean Israel has to push the button to turn off water to those children. It's not worth it.
Doesn't mean they have to literally starve them all out of their homes.
Well, and that's collective punishment. That's a war crime. You can't punish an entire population of people for the actions of a few. You can't do that. We've agreed on that for a very long time, and it seems Israel just gets a pass. They just get to do whatever they want, at least when it comes from the American perspective on the IDF. It's very infuriating.
And it's also powers out.
Yeah.
They don't have anything. Hospitals don't have anything.
That too,
What's happening to all the babies on ventilators in Palestinian hospitals, huh? Since that's been such an important talking point this past week. Yeah. What about all the babies in Gaza that are getting bombed out?
It's like 700 kids have died so far because of bombings. Kids that, again, did nothing wrong but live on the opposite side of a wall that they didn't place, that they don't even know the significance of right now.
And there are reports saying that 1,000 people are trapped under rubble right now. 1,000 unidentified Palestinians are just trapped under rubble, and they don't know. They don't know who they are because it's hell over there.
That's another thing is that the death toll estimates are always going to be lower than they actually are because, well, one, Gaza and their officials don't have the resources to accurately count literally everybody, but also, two, because, people are going to be trapped under rubble. People aren't going to be identified for a very long time. So the death toll, as it's increasing sharply already, is likely higher than we can even count at the moment. It's going to get much worse. And as we predicted last episode, the ratio of Israelis dead to Palestinians dead was lopsided only for a moment, and now it's completely lopsided the other way. It's not good. And on top of all of that, the IDF, as we mentioned before, has been accused of using white phosphorus in its bombing runs. The IDF has denied this, of course, but there are photos and on-the-ground testimony of this being used. The Human Rights Watch, I believe, has confirmed that it's being used. White phosphorus is incredibly dangerous to humans. It causes burns, long-term damage to organs and skin. It can start fires very easily. And, of course, it's not pinpoint accurate. You can't use it to directly target certain areas within a city in a place like Gaza. It's designed to blanket an area and hurt civilians. Yeah. So more war crimes. I mean, they're responding to a terrorist attack with war crimes. That's what this is.
It's responding to war crimes with war crimes is crazy.
Yeah. And it's like, speaking of the UN being completely toothless, white phosphorus is illegal under international law through a UN convention. A UN convention, of course, that Israel has not signed on to. So no one can enforce it against them. So they can just do it.
Once again, like we talked about last week, the U.S. and Israel coming through and just not signing any of the good things that the UN tries to do. That's cool. And while we're talking about, I don't know, like large authority figures, we could talk about the one guy who is positioned to maybe try and talk Bibi out of it. And that's President Biden.
Yeah, that's Joe Biden. Yeah.
And one of the things that he had to say today was, I spoke with Palestinian Authority President Abbas to condemn Hamas attack on Israel and reiterate that Hamas does not stand for the Palestinian people's right to dignity and self-determination. I assured him that we're working with partners in the region to ensure humanitarian supplies reach civilians in Gaza and to prevent the conflict from widening. That's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
That's kind of a nothing response. Like, oh, what I did to face this humanitarian crisis, I called the guy in the area that it's not happening in to condemn a terrorist attack.
Yeah, but do you condemn Hamas?
Yeah, but wait, hold on. But do you condemn Hamas?
Yeah,
we'll get humanitarian aid through. Maybe that'll just go to Hamas. And that who's going to distribute it?
Yeah.
There are 600,000 Palestinians so far that have relocated as of Sunday at like 2:10.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, no, Biden's response has not been good to this at all. I saw the White House was lit up with white and blue, the colors of the Israeli flag a couple of days ago. Biden has pledged unequivocal support to Israel. He's not really criticized them publicly whatsoever. Some liberals, I think on some copium, have tried to say that Biden focuses more on behind the scenes pressure as a means of getting Netanyahu to move one way or the other, but I've seen no evidence of that.
Yeah.
I've not seen the IDF show any amount of restraint. If they're showing restraint now, I don't know what it would look like if they're unrestrained. And I ultimately think that the United States just doesn't care.
No.
I don't think that there's much Biden really wants to do to slow Israel down here. Well, because what's the repercussions of a bunch of Palestinians dying for Joe Biden? Doesn't mean anything.
Nothing.
Israel is the United States' ally in that region. There's religious significance, obviously. There's strategic location, geographical significance. There's no reason, there's no incentive for Joe Biden or really any Western politician to push back against Israel in any serious way. So I'm not confident that's going to happen at all, really.
It's crazy. It's getting so bad in Gaza that Gaza health officials, per Reuters, are starting to store bodies in ice cream freezer trucks because moving them to hospitals is too risky and cemeteries are running out of space.
That's crazy.
What the fuck? And people just look at this and can just give their unequivocal support to Israel like the U.S. is doing. Chuck Schumer and Mitt Romney and a group of bipartisan senators are in Israel right now in Tel Aviv. They posted a picture to do, I don't know, evil things. Like to meet at a conference of doing more evil.
Yeah, conference of evil.
the fucking League of Villains up in here. Like, come on. Then they posted a picture on Twitter of them in a missile shelter right now in Tel Aviv. You posting that picture just makes it seem like they're under more attack. Yeah. And it just makes you seem like Hamas is the one that are continuing their assault, which they are. Hamas is still firing off their bathtub rockets. They are doing that. I will never get on here and say that they aren't, and I won't get on here and say that Hamas isn't bad. But they are refusing to acknowledge all of the people in the 600,000 people in Gaza that have to fear death from above while they are migrating to safety, maybe safety, in the south. As 300,000 IDF soldiers wait at the fence ready to pounce.
Yeah, well, why would Hamas stop? Right?
Yeah.
Like, again, of course, we don't support Hamas. What Hamas did is terrible. We condemn Hamas. Right? Like, I can't state that any clearer. But why would they stop at this point? Right? More than 6,000 bombs from the IDF. The people that live in Gaza live with the constant, before this conflict, lived with the constant hum of drones overhead that they could always hear because the IDF always had drones flying above them. Why would Hamas stop at this point? They know that they're not going to win, clearly, but Hamas's goal was never to win.
No.
They just wanted to do what they do because they're jihad extremists.
They want to martyr themselves.
Yeah. They have no interest in liberating Palestine, but if the IDF is just going to completely give in to this idea that it's a religious war, that's exactly what Hamas wants. Why would they stop? They're going to keep doing what they do.
Both sides don't really care. Both sides want to continue to escalate, but Israel has so much more power in this situation that Hamas does that it really doesn't matter. Israel can do whatever the fuck it wants. Yeah. And clearly everyone is just letting them. If all these countries, if Britain, who came out and condemned, well, they didn't condemn Israel, but they said Israel should show restraint earlier today. If they're coming out and saying that, why don't you have some fucking balls and start, I don't know, putting sanctions on them? Why don't you say, yo, maybe you got to chill with the war crimes?
Well, it's like, oh, yeah, restraint. What, 3,000 bombs instead of 6,000?
Yeah.
Like, what does restraint look like?
Restraint is like, I don't know, maybe just evacuate Gaza City, not all of northern Gaza. Maybe only send like 100,000 people away.
Man, it's bad. Yeah, it's really bad. If we move over, before moving on to our broader critiques here, if we move over to the West Bank, which is a location about about 50 miles northeast of Gaza, still in Israel. About 60 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli settlers. These aren't people in the IDF. These are just Israeli settlers, as violence has surged since the start of this specific conflict last week, according to the Associated Press. The IDF has basically done nothing to prevent this from happening. And I bring this up because, right, all of the violence is centered around Gaza right now because Hamas came out of Gaza. I don't think they operate in the West Bank whatsoever, but we're seeing violence now spill over into the West Bank as ethnic tensions ignite even more. And the West Bank specifically is the location where a lot of the settler colonialism has been focused on, at least in recent history, as people are kicked out of their homes because IDF people come up and say, oh, we need this for a military site. And then a week later, it's like, oh, well, actually, we're moving this Israeli family into your home.
Yeah, or some dickhead from the Bronx will come through on, like, what is it?
Moving to Golan Heights.
Religious rights citizenship and come through and just kick a Palestinian out of their house.
Yeah, some dude that has his entire family's been in New York for like 200 years. Like, no familial connection to the land whatsoever. Yeah. Just moving into Israel to kick people out of their homes.
But a scarier part about this conflict is that it is kind of threatening to spill over into other regions. There are reports being, the UN is reporting from Lebanon that they were struck by a missile in their Lebanese, like, not base, but like it's not.
Who was struck by a missile?
The UN.
Oh, the UN.
A UN site was struck by a missile in Lebanon. They don't know whether or not it was from Hezbollah or Israel. They're trying to figure it out right now. Nobody was hurt, but there is rocket fire going across the border.
Yeah, the one thing that we didn't touch on too much last week and has been missing so far this episode is that there are a lot of countries around Israel that the United States and others fear may get involved. Hezbollah from Lebanon is one of those. People have feared that Iran will help out because they've been, in a way, supportive of Hamas in the past. There's also Jordan and a couple of other surrounding countries that might want to get involved to some extent. Right now, I think the United States has like aircraft carriers in the water. Is that what they're called? Just the giant ships that cost like $1 billion each.
Yeah.
We've got those sitting in the water to attempt to deter anyone from or any kind of military action from Lebanon, of which Hezbollah is related to. So I think ultimately maybe the U.S. can act as a deterrent in a way here because no one wants to get into a conflict with the United States.
No. Well,
but it could be bad, right? It could escalate very easily, especially as the IDF continues to do war crimes against those that are those that have sympathies elsewhere in the Arab world, right? It could only get worse.
Yeah. Our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, right? Yeah, he's been meeting with people in Egypt, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, other surrounding countries in the area to try and make sure that the conflict does not spill over because that would be just kind of bad for everyone.
Israel's a nuclear power. They don't say it, but they are.
Yeah.
Right?
There are talks with Egypt about opening up the Rafah border crossing. I don't know if that means that Palestinians will be able to come through because as of a couple days ago, Egypt only wanted to open it for foreigners.
Wait, who said they want to open that crossing?
Egypt and Blinken and whoever runs Egypt are talking right now about opening up the Rafah border crossing. So that
because I know that Egypt initially opened up that crossing so that people could come over, and then Israel airstriked it and said, "Don't open it, or we're going to keep airstriking you."
For real?
So that's sick.
That would be crazy. That's an update from a couple hours ago. Again, today, Sunday, October 15th. But Iran is starting to insert themselves into the conflict.
Sick.
So that's a little bit crazy. They said, "Let me find the report because it literally just happened." I have the Guardian timeline open right now. 6 minutes ago, Iranian foreign minister said the United States will suffer significant damages if the ongoing war in Gaza spills over into a larger conflict, Al Jazeera reported on Sunday. Quote, "We have conveyed our message to the Zionist regime through its allies that if they do not cease their atrocities in Gaza, Iran cannot simply remain an observer." Iranian state media cited the prime minister as telling the network, Reuters reports. Quote, "If the scope of the war expands, significant damages will also be inflicted upon America."
Okay, well, maybe what I said was just
Iran
wrong.
just out here escalating like
Jesus
crazy.
Christ. I mean, it's just like it all comes back to Israel, right? Like they don't have to. I hate how so many people are positioning Israel as this sort of like force of nature. They just have to respond. They just have to do what they are right now. And we all have to move around Israel's desire to just turn Gaza into a parking lot for Walmart or something like that. Israel is not a force of nature. There are people, specifically Netanyahu and his cronies, making decisions for what the IDF is going to do to the people in Gaza. You don't have to cut off electricity. You don't have to cut off water. You don't have to drop white phosphorus. All of these are decisions that are being made that people in the international community should be pushing back against heavily, because this is what will lead to a broader regional war, which could be disastrous for many, many, many more people. It's like it's on Israel here. They are the source of the violence.
And Israel acts like there are no Palestinians that want peace.
Exactly.
They could just work with them. That's all they have to do. All they have to do is extend some olive branches.
Well, in the past, they've actively been against factions within Gaza and for Palestinians broadly that wanted Palestinian statehood. There are records of Netanyahu and people that have worked alongside him, been supportive of him, where they basically say that Hamas is better for them politically.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, they don't want Palestinian statehood. They don't want peace with Palestinians. They want Israel to just be Israel. They don't want Palestine to exist, which is exactly what's being reflected in all of their behaviors right now. But I think that, does that generally sum up where we've been with the news in the past week or so?
Pretty much. People in Gaza are dying of thirst right now. It's bad. Things like that are happening.
Yeah. All of this to say that, again, Israel is responding to Hamas's terrorist attack with war crimes of their own against Palestinian civilians and children. Obviously, this is not going to resolve the material conditions that motivate terrorism against Israeli citizens. It's only going to make it worse. Especially, eventually, the conflict's going to end, right? It's not going to go on forever. This specific instance, at least this episode, eventually it will cease and things might go back to the way they were before, or maybe the region will be changed in a very significant way, but perhaps we'll snap back to some amount of normalcy, and then terrorism will pop up again because we haven't resolved the oppressive forces that exist between Israelis and Palestinians, or the state of Israel and Palestinians. And again, I don't care how pro-Israel you are, if you can look at what Israel is doing to Palestinian kids and think that's justified, you're pro-war crime, you're pro-terrorism, you're pro-death, you don't want peace, you just want to eradicate Palestinians.
Especially when the prevailing narrative this week, like the optical narrative this week, has been about the beheadings of babies.
Yeah.
It's been the IDF coming out and saying that 40 babies were beheaded by Hamas. That has been the thing that right-wingers and people who support Israel have been pushing all week.
An unconfirmed allegation, by the way.
Exactly.
But it doesn't make a difference for us, right?
No, not at all. Because that would be bad, and if it's true, I condemn it. Well, like 100%.
Babies died on the Israeli side. Babies are certainly dying on the Palestinian side. It doesn't make a difference if you beheaded them or not.
Yeah,
like, each side Hamas has killed kids. Israel has killed kids.
And that's my point, is that, okay, you can look at the Israeli babies that were killed, but you don't give a shit about anyone in Gaza that's killed. Again, 40% of the population is under 15 years old. You mean to tell me that they're all just terrorist sympathizers, that they should be condemned to death?
Yeah, and it's like situations like these really make me reflect on what we mean when we say terrorism.
Yeah.
It makes me think of back in 2021 as Joe Biden was leaving Afghanistan, when we just murked 8 innocent people, 7 of which were kids. That one guy who was just bringing water, a humanitarian worker that was just bringing water to a village. Yeah, we just killed him on accident. But that isn't considered terrorism. That's like a legitimate military oopsie daisy, right? But any other country that does that, even if they did it by accident, is considered a terrorist when they do that. Like, what do we mean when we say terrorism at this point?
Terrorist it's just a political designation. It doesn't have any real moral character to it. Like, if you are designated as a terrorist, you are designated as a terrorist for political purposes, because the terror that Israel commits against the people of Gaza is never recognized as what it truly is.
Yeah. And any moral authority that you wanted to argue Israel had following Hamas's terrorist attack on their own civilians has just been completely sacrificed at this point. Like, how can you argue Israel has the authority to say, like, oh yeah, we're against terrorism, we're fighting terrorism, as they kill kids?
As they siege the entire place, as they siege 2.2 million people.
Yeah, the people that they have labeled as animals entirely. Like, how, I don't understand how you can be on Israel's side whatsoever here, even if you are sympathetic, as we are, towards the suffering that they had to endure following Hamas's attack.
Yeah.
I don't see how they're in any position to say, like, what they are doing is justified. It's crazy to me. But one line of argumentation I did want to address before we move on is some people have been arguing with us specifically in our posts that we've put on social media the past week or so, saying that Hamas, or Palestinians broadly, are to blame for the conditions in Gaza because the IDF pulled out in 2005.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've seen this in a lot of different places, which is true. The IDF pulled out in 2005, 2006. Hamas is elected. But after that point, bombings didn't stop. The Israeli government, again, still controls basically all resources necessary to survival within Gaza, water, electricity being some examples. And some have also tried to argue that Palestinian groups have attempted to derail a two-state solution in the past. So it's basically their fault for what's happening right now.
But they do that and ignore that Netanyahu was complicit in Hamas derailing the two-state solution. He wasn't even complicit. He encouraged the derailing of the two-state solution.
That's my thing, is like, Netanyahu has been prime minister for the better part of the last 16 years.
15 years of power.
Exactly. At what point did you think Netanyahu actually wanted a two-state solution?
Yeah.
Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
He came into office in 2009 as prime minister. Do you really think there was any point in that time, from 2009 to now, where he actually wanted a two-state solution? Of course he didn't. And also, Bibi Netanyahu and other far-right Israeli politicians, as we mentioned before, are on record saying that they don't want Palestinian statehood, and being indirectly in favor of Hamas, because Hamas gives them the legitimacy they need, the pretext they need.
The plausible deniability.
To wage greater war on Palestinians broadly.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen no evidence that they actually want a two-state solution here. And even if none of that was true, even if Bibi Netanyahu really wanted a two-state solution, I don't see how you can blame Palestinians, because the power is clearly asymmetrically distributed, right? Yeah. Palestinians are not in a position to demand a two-state solution, and to say that it's their fault is just a victim blame.
And I don't know how you can say that the IDF pulled out of Gaza as if that means anything when they just surround it.
Yes.
If us pulling out of Afghanistan meant that we lined troops all around the entire country, I don't think anyone would say we really pulled out of Afghanistan. Yeah. You can't say that we pulled out of just like this one city. We may have it under siege.
Yeah.
We may have it completely under siege and control whether it's a candy bar or gasoline that comes through into Gaza. Yeah. But we pulled out, so it's okay. It's all their fault.
That's another important distinction that I've seen the pro-Israel types kind of smooth over, is like, Palestine or Gaza is not its own country.
Yeah.
Right? The fence isn't a border.
It's a territory.
And Israel has recognized this in the past, that the fence is just a fence. It's not a border. To treat them as though they have their own sovereignty is pretty fucking insane. Again, they don't control the necessities for their own life. They can't even import building materials without Israel confirming that they can do it, and oftentimes they don't get to do it. They can't leave Gaza without like a work permit or some kind of approval from Israel, and those are very rare to come by, very hard to come by.
Yeah.
I don't see how you could argue in any way that it's Gaza's fault. Like, to blame the oppressed for their own oppression is wild to me.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really work. But anyway, I think that sums up the news on Israel this week.
Yeah.
I get the one other thing that I would bring up is once again the leftists kind of having a really bad take.
The annoying
on this as a whole. I went in pretty hard on people last week because it really did enrage me, and I stand behind all those comments. I think they're all still correct, even now. But I don't want to overstate their power with perhaps a disproportionality in the way that we cover it, right? We may have talked about it a lot, but ultimately there's no leftist position that you can take, whether it's our position or a position that's like pro-Hamas, which I would argue is not real leftism. There's no position you can take that's going to like change the mind of Joe Biden, change the mind of Bibi Netanyahu. But I still think it's important to call out other fellow leftists when they have really bad takes. Otherwise, what's the point in having the right take, right?
Exactly.
Like, if we can't have right takes and call each other out when we think we have bad takes, then like what are we arguing for in the first place? And people that are supporting Hamas, I think, are just pretty insane because they're not doing revolution. Yeah,
it's just delusional, and it just signals to me that you don't understand the principles that you claim to stand for.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it to me reflects a sort of aesthetic leftism. Yeah, right, where you want to be the most radical in the room, you want to be seen as the most based in the room, but in reality, you don't have that many principles beyond that. Or it could also be at the same time, or perhaps its own thing, just anti-Americanism, like as an axiomatic belief.
Yeah.
Rather than a principle you arrive to through understanding what the United States actually does. When you're just anti-American, you end up doing things like supporting Russia by accident or supporting Hamas by accident. Yeah. You have to have grounded principles and standing with oppressed people, but understanding power imbalances, right? That's what the left, at least for me, is all about, is understanding how power is distributed and what that means for the oppression of people and the material conditions of different people. You should not be supporting Hamas. No. And if you are supporting Hamas, I think you're not really being a leftist. I think you're just falling victim to wanting to seem the most based, 100%. To be aesthetically pleasing 100%. For yourself. And it's like, it's the thing that Bo Burnham says, right? Like, why does everyone view politics through the myopic lens of their own self-actualization? Mm-hmm. Like, that's what it is, I think. Is people just want to feel important. People want to feel the most radical, and so they use every political issue, including the Palestine and Israel, as a means of attaining that end. It's bad.
It's a means of distancing themselves from, I guess, conservatives.
Yeah.
Without actually distancing yourselves from conservatives principally, because you're both kind of standing for the same thing, whether or not you're pro-Hamas or pro-IDF. It's kind of the same. You're just genocide of the other side. But I think that a lot of people just want to distance themselves from like what they think that is and what they think Ben Shapiro is supporting by being just the opposite of that. It's reactionary in its own sense.
There is something to looking to your political allies around you and trying to deduce what that might say about you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you find yourself surrounded with people like Michael Knowles and Ben Shapiro, you should seriously question what's going on. But you can't always use that as a means of measuring how good your political beliefs are. You should be able to arrive at your political positions regardless of who else is arriving at those political positions. And if you feel as though they're deductively valid, they have cogent, strong logic behind them, then that should be sufficient. You shouldn't have to feel as though you are popular or feel as though you're making a revolutionary statement.
Yeah.
You should just strive to have the best takes possible in line with your axioms, that being, siding with oppressed people, freedom for everyone, maximizing happiness, that sort of thing.
No war crimes. Not doing genocide.
Yeah, namely, genocide cannot be one of the things you want to do.
Right? It's kind of like the bars in hell.
Yeah. No,
really.
If you find yourself siding with a group like Hamas that in their charter says like, yeah, we want to just eradicate Jewish people, that's not good.
That's really not good.
And that doesn't make me like pro-America. You know what I'm saying? That I just don't want genocide to happen to anybody.
I can still want the people of Palestine to be free. I can still want Israel to stop. I can still recognize that Israel is engaging in disproportionate responses and, dare I say, terrorism against the people of Gaza, while also saying that it's bad that Hamas says straight up that they don't want Jewish people to be around.
Yeah, it'd be sick if genocide didn't happen. That's one of my core beliefs. So I don't want
break that down axiomatically.
I hope that makes sense to all of you. But I think we can move on to the more important news this episode.
Oh yeah,
the most important.
The most important thing to happen this week.
We got two. At least I got two pieces of news out of the house this week. They're both related, but one is what I would call beyond parody. But we'll get to that in a little bit. The first thing we have to talk about is the speaker, because we have more updates on the speaker news. So once again, moving on to more serious news, the United States House of Representatives is still in complete disarray without a speaker as of October 15th. As of recording this, it's been almost 12 days that the House has not had a Speaker of the House, and this means that nothing has gotten done whatsoever. But we do have some news to cover in regards to the speaker's race. So last week, the GOP caucus held a private meeting where they decided who they were going to support as speaker so that they could, get business moving this week. They had two options, that being Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise. Those were the two on the short list. Reportedly, Steve Scalise, who I can't believe I didn't bring this up last episode, famously called himself David Duke without the baggage.
Like, dog, what does that mean? In my mind, David Duke is really all baggage. Not many redeeming qualities about that guy, but...
Is there a baggage list, David Duke? I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, David Duke without baggage, dare I say, that isn't David Duke. That's not the David Duke I know.
Yeah, Steve Scalise also, I think like in 2004, spoke at some conference that was just like blatant white supremacist groups. So we know who he is, basically.
Republican majority leader in the House.
But he won the private ballot. By 14 votes. However, some 20 Republicans announced they were not going to vote for Steve Scalise, not because he's a white supremacist, but for other reasons, I'm going to assume. Meaning that he was going to lose the House floor vote. So they didn't hold a floor vote on the House. This was like a private caucus thing that they were doing.
That's crazy.
So Scalise rescinded his candidacy for speaker about 24 hours after he was declared to be the guy that was going to be speaker. Then another vote was held where Jim Jordan won the private vote, but it seems that a lot of people within the party will not support him. Around 55 or so said that they weren't going to vote for him on the floor of the House. So he basically had no hope of getting the votes necessary to be speaker. So as of October 15th, no floor vote has been held in the House for the new speaker, and we still don't know who it's going to be, at least as of right now. They could come out with somebody tomorrow, and I'll vote for him, and maybe he could become speaker, but right now we have no idea.
No, I couldn't even throw a guess out there.
Yeah.
I would have no idea who to name anymore, because Jim Jordan was the guy back when the first speaker debacle happened that people might have wanted instead of Kevin McCarthy, right?
He was voted for a couple of times.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't know where they're going to go.
But it was like Kevin's going to be the guy, you know what I mean?
He's just going to cut some deals.
Eventually, he's going to be the guy, and he's going to cut some really bad deals. But Steve Scalise couldn't get it done, and Steve Scalise has fully rescinded his name. He could come back, I guess, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And then Jim Jordan was my pick last episode. That was my prediction. And it seems like Jim Jordan can't get the votes necessary, so I legitimately don't know who they're going to propose.
And it's like, I don't understand why they're not just picking a speaker.
Yeah, they can't get behind him. I think, and like this isn't even Matt Gaetz meddling and causing a bunch of problems.
He said he was pro both of them.
Yeah, he said he was going to support Steve Scalise when Scalise won over Jim Jordan, and Gaetz initially voted for Jim Jordan. This is like legitimate division within the House GOP.
But
it's crazy.
Why? It's
I don't
not
know.
based on like any principles.
Of course not. Right?
Because nothing they ever do is based on principles.
I think it's just like personal distaste for each other.
You think so?
Like I think people legitimately don't like Jim Jordan, like individually, and I think people individually don't like Steve Scalise for whatever reason. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, the Freedom Caucus types,
they want David Duke with the bag.
Yeah, well, exactly. They came out and said that they're not going to vote for Steve Scalise. Maybe Steve Scalise said something to them one time. I know George Santos, who's the topic of our Beyond Parody section that we'll get to in just a second, said he wasn't going to vote for Steve Scalise because Steve Scalise didn't call him and ask for his vote. So he said, I'm not voting for him. I'm voting for Jim Jordan, which is like, it's high school. It's sick.
That's fucking cool. That's really cool. I'm legitimately, I do think that moderate Republicans, the Mitt Romney types, might just cut a deal with Democrats and get some dude in there.
Yeah, just like the most liberal Republican.
Exactly, because I mean, Bloomberg reports that Armed Services Chair asked Democrats for conditions to cut a deal. They're already starting to reach across the aisle.
Well, they kind of have to at this point.
Yeah,
it seems like.
They've wasted, 12 days of the 45-day extension that they got?
Yeah, we got 30 days left. We got a month.
We got a month, to figure out a whole budget.
Wait, we have a month and 2 days. I think the budget expires on November 17th, I think was the date. So I didn't even think about that. Yeah. They've made no progress on the budget because they can't do anything without a speaker, at least officially.
And they're thinking about expanding the interim speaker, I think McHenry's powers, so that they can maybe do something.
Is that allowed, though?
I don't know.
I don't know if that's constitutional. I think you need an elected speaker to do things.
Man, that's so cool.
So, I mean, maybe the rules don't fucking matter when it comes to these people. They can do whatever they want, and we could just, not be able to do anything about it. So I guess they could change the rules, even if it's unconstitutional, just to, get the budget passed.
And I mean, remember, it's not just passing a budget, it's averting government shutdown.
Yes.
So that's a big deal.
I also love that they can't send any funding to Israel right now.
That's so good.
I know Biden's already unleashed some aid that's just going to go towards killing Palestinians, but I love that we can't there's a resolution they want to pass, right? Unequivocally standing with Israel, which is a whole other piece of drama in and of itself, but they can't pass that. Because they can't do anything.
Man, it's so funny that a lot of this happened because Matt Gaetz was like, no, we can't send any money to Ukraine.
Yeah.
But now people just kind of want to rush through. So it's like, no, we have to send money to Israel.
Yeah. How is that different?
We have to send money to Israel.
In their worldview, how is that different?
Yeah, because they get on their pedestals and grift about we're sending all these money to these corrupt countries. That's crazy, to these corrupt places, and we're not helping the people here. We're helping everyone abroad, but no one at home.
Yeah, I know Josh Hawley does that all the time, and then he proposed sending a couple billion to Israel, and it's all right, sick.
I forgot about Josh Hawley. That guy's kind of fallen off.
What he said, he's like, we should take the money we send to Ukraine and send it to Israel. So I guess all of that rhetoric about we need to spend it on people here is just a lie, as it always has been.
We need to only fuel aggressive wars and not defensive ones.
Well, when it comes to asymmetrical warfare, as I would argue Russia, Ukraine would have been without our funding.
Exactly.
We should be funding the side that has a lot more power.
Exactly. Or alternatively, we should fund the side that looks more like us. Alternatively, the side that's not brown.
That is part of the reason I think so few American politicians actually care about this.
Yeah.
There's this old clip, I think, from a political commentator that's passed away at this point, where he was saying, like, imagine if it was flipped, right? Like, we would so clearly know if it was like a ton of Jewish people crammed in, 2 million Jewish people crammed in to the largest open-air prison in the world that didn't have access to food or electricity without a larger government giving it to them. Like, we would recognize what is going on.
It makes you wince just hearing about it. Because it's like, ooh.
Especially after the Holocaust, World War II, we would recognize immediately what that is.
It never would have began to happen.
But I do think a component of this is they aren't white people.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of Western audiences, that immediately means you don't have to give them as much compassion as you would if white people were struggling. And I would think, again, I'm in support of funding Ukraine to ensure they can defend themselves. But I do think there is something to the critique that, like, we're super quick to give funding to Ukraine, but we're obviously not going to give funding to Palestinians. And I think the racial component is there.
Super quick to give unconditional funding to Ukraine that they can do whatever they want with, to let them have, like, what, scatter bombs or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Like, things that are
I'm not
just
for that,
bad.
to be clear.
Yeah, no, exactly. We've talked about it
Cluster
many times
munitions,
before.
yeah.
Cluster munitions, like unconditional aid to Ukraine. But I mean, I guess we're also giving unconditional aid to Israel too.
That's true, yeah.
Do whatever you want. Buy as much white phosphorus as you want to.
I know the contexts are very different. They're very nuanced situations, of course. But yeah, I think the racist component's there, of course.
If only Hunter Biden did deals in, like, Israel or something.
Yeah.
Allegedly did deals in Israel, then maybe some stuff would happen.
Maybe the tide of the culture war could turn against Israel. Only then. Hunter Biden's our savior.
Hunter Biden could get in there and he could solve this issue right now.
So getting back to the House Speaker drama, at this point, it's not clear who it's going to be, but it seems that the GOP wants to get back in session on Tuesday, so maybe they'll have a candidate by then. But of course, that's what we told y'all last week, is that, they're going to be back in session by Tuesday and vote on somebody, and they'll have a speaker. That's exactly what was supposed to happen. It didn't happen, so we'll see if something changes for
I
this week.
personally think they should always try to come back in session on, like, a Thursday. Alternatively, something about that to me just sounds like a better
Feels
day.
right.
But
It feels right, yeah. In other House news, though, I have a quick Beyond Parody section for you all to end out the episode, our last news story of today. I wanted to check in on George Santos, who is personally my favorite 100% ethnically Jewish war hero that survived 9/11 on the top of the World Trade Center. That's my guy.
Yeah, ethnically Jew-ish war hero.
That's right. I'll read this headline from CNN, and then we can get into the story. It says, quote, Representative George Santos faces 10 new federal charges, including allegations of stealing donors' identities and running up fraudulent credit card charges.
Maybe he's been stealing their identities so that he can make up new lies. Maybe whenever he lies, he's taking a persona that maybe a donor had before.
That might not be too far off what's actually going on here. This comes after Santos's own campaign treasurer has pleaded guilty for fraud following the 2022 campaign.
That's crazy.
He's cooked. I think he's cooked. What the New York prosecutors are alleging here is that Santos lied about bringing in $250,000 to his campaign in donations to qualify for the RNC's assistance in campaigning. We've talked about this before. You got to prove you can fundraise before they'll even help you win a campaign. The RNC has a similar rule. He's also being accused of lying about contributions from his family members and a personal loan from himself to his campaign of $500,000.
Oh, wow.
He's being accused of just fabricating all of this to meet certain thresholds. And then my favorite part.
Okay.
This is a quote from Politico. They said, quote, the indictment also detailed additional allegations, including a scheme in which Santos stole his donors' personal and financial information and used it repeatedly to charge their credit cards without authorization, then transferred the funds to his campaign, the campaigns of others, and his personal bank account. Which is just like crazy illegal and also hilarious.
Holy shit. Bro thought he could get away with it.
Yeah.
Bro thought it's kind of like Bob Menendez.
Yep.
Just, it's not as blatant as money in the robe with your name on it.
Gold bars, yeah.
But it's almost there.
Yeah.
It really is. And I don't understand how your treasurer for your campaign can plead guilty without that implicating you in major ways.
Yeah.
Can you really get on there and say, like, I didn't know that they were doing all this bad stuff for me?
Yeah, his campaign manager came out and she was basically like, yeah, like fraud happened. We did it.
That's good.
Like I don't see how George Santos gets out of this whatsoever. Apparently he was like, because there's a limit. There's a top threshold for how much you can take in from like direct contributions, right? Like it's $3,700 or something like that. There's a max number you can take in from individual donors. And so to get around that, it seems George Santos created false names and then just sent in a bunch of money from the same card. And also put money
from the same card.
Yeah, because he stole one dude's information or a couple dudes' information and was just charging their credit cards repeatedly. And he put some of that money into his own personal bank account, which I personally respect.
That's good.
That's sick.
That's good. Hey, man, if you're going to go all the way.
Yeah. It's like George Santos, sitting member of Congress with power, somebody with power in this country. Seemingly, he stole money from donors and put it into his personal bank account. I think that's awesome. He's cooked, though.
Especially, you know what? Don't put him in jail. Drop the charges. Bro's stealing from Republican donors.
Free my man. Good point, yeah.
He's doing everything right. He's doing everything I get out here and preach about every week.
It would be hypocritical of me to say he deserves to go to jail.
Exactly. You know what? If I was in his position, I'd do the same fucking thing. And so would all of you, and I don't want to hear it.
Now, George Santos has denied the allegation, saying he's going to prove his innocence in court. But given that people are already flipping on him, and this makes a total of 23 indictments.
Damn.
Because we covered his previous wire fraud charges a couple of months ago.
And he also has charges in Brazil.
Charges in Brazil, of course, because he stole money. I think he's done. I think he's cooked. I think, at least politically, someone's going to run against him in 24, and he's not going to win because he won in a district that Biden won in 2020. I feel like there's just no chance.
How the fuck did he win in that? Oh, he lied.
He lied, yeah.
He lied about everything. I'm just now remembering again.
And the Democrats' opposition research just completely dropped the ball. Like, just did not check any of the statements he made. He completely lied to the voters, and he won. And I don't think that's going to work this time around.
He's kind of quick with it, though. He's kind of quick. He's shameless about it. Like, he's living his authentic life. He's being true to himself.
Yeah.
And that's really what we all aspire to be. Like,
can't fault him for that, really.
I can't fault him for that. I cannot be mad at him from stealing from Republican donors.
Yeah, but I guess in the wave of the rest of the news we've had this week, the past few weeks, this isn't really too beyond the pale.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny enough to be beyond parody because it's like, come on now.
It is funny. There is a small thing while we're talking about indictments that happened this week. A judge just recently said that the NDA that Trump's campaign staffers had to sign in the 2016 election is now void.
In the 2016 election?
Yeah.
I didn't know they had to sign an NDA.
He made them all sign like an extensive gag order.
I guess that makes sense.
That lasted their entire lives.
Oh, but that's been cut now.
And apparently it was like super vague. It covered almost anything. They could just not talk badly about him in general.
Oh, that's
And
sick.
a judge just said straight up, no, that's cut. You don't have to abide by that anymore. So I am curious to see what kind of information will flow out about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get some funny takes out of that, but I don't think it's going to be of any significance to the election or anything.
No, because it's also like you worked for the guy. Like you worked for Trump in his campaign, so I can't imagine you're like the best.
Yeah, and Trump's just going to be like, oh, well, the swamp got to him.
They're
the
lying.
Democrats got, yeah.
They're lying.
He's gay. He's gay. I don't know what
They're
he's talking
lying
about.
and he's gay.
Yeah. It's just not going to matter. But I'm excited to see what the demons have to say. It's like the people that worked for like Steven Crowder, you know? Like, obviously.
Oh, that's right. Was Trump out here touching people's balls?
Well, it's like
pulling out cock at the
Steven
workplace?
Crowder, clearly a bad guy, but again, like you did sign up to work at the Demon Factory. You didn't have to. I know employment's compulsory under capitalism, but you don't got to work for like the worst person you can find.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you could have worked for like Ben Carson's campaign or something.
Anything but Steven Crowder or Donald Trump. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I know Ben Carson wasn't really going anywhere, but still, like, you didn't have to work for Trump. That guy, come on now.
Sometimes that's what I feel like political campaigns are. It's just like jobs programs. Like people just get a job for a few months, maybe a year.
That's got to be that's what the DeSantis one is right now.
Like all the political consultants, they know DeSantis is cooked. They know Nikki Haley, Tim Scott don't have a chance, but they're making some money.
Haley, I saw a report earlier today when I was reading. Nikki Haley is closing the gap on DeSantis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's sick.
I don't know how true it is. I saw the headline. I didn't read it because I was too focused on Israel-Palestine stuff, but I hope it's true. If she could become the number 2 man, I'd love that so much.
So it's going to be Trump, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis. Oh, talk about a fall from grace.
Could you imagine Nikki Haley at the center stage in the debate in what, 2 weeks?
November 7th, I think.
Oh,
3
weeks.
Like that. Yeah.
In 3 weeks when Nikki Haley's just front and center on that debate stage because she's pulling the highest, that'd be so cool.
And then 3 weeks after that, DeSantis versus Newsom. Thursday, November 30th, I think.
Oh, my God. That one's going to be so good.
Oh man, that's gonna be crazy. That shit better be like 4 hours long.
I hope so. I hope it's absurdly long. I hope they talk about literally every topic that's been brought up this last year. I hope they ask Ron his takes on Israel Palestine, even though he. That's another thing that happened with that this week.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis has come out and he's been like, no, we shouldn't take any Palestinian refugees whatsoever. They're all Hamas. And Trump.
Oh yeah.
Trump started fucking cooking. And he said Hamas are coming over the southern border.
Yeah, and I saw the End Wokeness Twitter account tweeted out an image of, and like, there's no other context for this.
Yeah.
It's just dudes with like face coverings on, and they're like,
Okay.
"Oh, Hamas is coming over into the United States."
Could have been me in high school.
No evidence. It's just them walking through a forest. No evidence that they're at the border. No evidence that they're related to Hamas in any way. They just look stereotypically like Hamas, I guess, in the conservative eye.
Man, that's just brown.
Yes, yeah.
That's probably what Trump's thinking. He sees brown people come across the border and he's like, it must be Hamas.
Bro, Hamas can't even like do a successful operation into Israel. They're not coming over to the United States.
No, it was unprecedented that they broke out of the fence. I don't think they're coming across the globe to get to us.
They do not have the infrastructure. They do not have the logistics to get over here and invade the United States. I promise.
Yeah, and this is also after like every conservative was freaking out about the global day of jihad. Did you hear anything about that?
No.
So people were saying it was the Hamas leader. I don't really know who leads Hamas. What about it? He posted a video talking about how he's calling for a global day of jihad on Friday, October 13th. Obviously, nothing happened because nothing was ever gonna fucking happen.
Yeah, I'm not feeling very liberated right now.
No, that's what prompted a lot of like conservatives talking about Hamas. They're coming across the border. You better not leave your house on Friday that day because every brown person that you see is probably a terrorist.
You see, that's the component of this whole conflict that does remind me of 9/11 quite a lot, where people are like individually scared for themselves that something's going to happen. It's like, dog, they're not coming for you.
It's like, dog, you live in Scranton, Ohio.
Yeah, they're not coming for you.
You're good.
Yeah, like I promise you're good. You live in a suburban neighborhood. You got nothing they need.
You're out here in the Iowa suburbs. I don't think Hamas has anything to do with you.
They do not care about you. They don't even have a way over here.
Exactly.
Like, you tell me they're going to organize and like what, take over? Come on, what are we talking about? It's just not going to happen. But yeah, that's a bit of rhetoric I thought was especially funny that I'd forgotten to include.
I'm surprised you didn't see the global day of jihad stuff. That shit was all over Twitter for a couple of days. Happened like earlier in the week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
I wish it would have been like a bigger thing. I don't want anyone to die, of course.
No.
I wish it was like a bigger thing.
But it's telling that literally nothing fucking happened.
Well, yeah, of course not.
Like, not a single thing fucking happened, and everyone.
You said it was Hamas that called for it, or the leader of Hamas that called for it. Like, what the fuck what is he gonna do?
That's what I'm saying. Bro hides out in Qatar. Like,
yeah, what is bro gonna do to influence world events? Like, come on now.
And everyone's also focused on it's worry about your own people. It's calm down a little bit.
Man, conservative reactions to geopolitics are always fun. I'm telling you, like what we said the other day. When geopolitical things kick off, you really find out who the demons are.
Yeah.
Like, people really just become fucking lunatics when it comes to foreign policy.
It's like conservatives just have this uncanny ability, again, to make everything about them.
Yeah.
Everything about them and their small town. I had seen some people, oh my God, did the rally in Dearborn happen after we recorded?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it must have. I think it happened
Detroit,
on
too.
Tuesday in Dearborn, because Dearborn has a really high Muslim population. There was a rally about, I don't know exactly like what it was, but there were Palestinian flags being waved around.
Yeah.
I would imagine it was just a free Palestine type thing, but every conservative on Twitter was like, you would think this was a scene out of Afghanistan or Iraq, but no, this is Dearborn, Michigan right now. They're here and they're coming for you.
Bro, no, it's just Dearborn.
Like, it's just Dearborn. It's just a town that's got a high Muslim population, and they want the people of Palestine to be free, as they should be.
That conservatives are just scared of their own shadow, I swear.
Yeah, and they're trying to pin it as this like pro-Hamas rally and everything. It's like, just because it's brown people with the flag does not mean that they're all terrorists, my guy.
Well, I mean, some of the like pro-Palestine marches I've seen, really just the ones blasted by conservatives, some of them have had like a symbol of like a dude in a paraglider, which I think is crazy.
The DSA?
Yeah. Which
God.
That's crazy. That's a crazy thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But again, I think those are the ones being signal boosted by conservatives as like an example of, oh my God, jihad's happening in America, which is like, it's not.
No.
I think people are correctly saying free Palestine in a moment where the IDF is killing thousands of Palestinians.
Yeah, no, that DSA tweet was nuts, though.
Oh, yeah.
Holy fucking shit, that blew my mind.
That's what I'm saying. When geopolitical issues kick off, you really find out who demons are on both sides. It's crazy. I get everyone wants a genocide except
now
us.
I know who to distance myself from.
You can't be saying shit like that. You can't be posting shit like that. Calm down.
Exactly. You know, if there's anything, just calm down.
Yeah, chill out.
It's going to be all right.
Assess the situation.
Think a little bit.
If you are really in doubt, you could always come to Head in the Office.
That's right.
And get the correct take.
The perfect take.
Yeah. But it's really not that hard to arrive on your own at the correct take. And luckily, we talked about a lot of leftists and people on the right that have insane takes on this issue. I think for the most part, when we talk about people on the right, that is generally reflective of what the right believes broadly. Yeah. Even if they're not, really reflecting on their beliefs. I think we got them pretty accurately. For everyone else, I do think that the leftists that have the insane pro-Hamas takes are being boosted a lot more. I think they are not representative of the average person, is what I'm saying. I would think most leftists are like, yeah, Hamas killing innocent people is bad, but like free Palestine, which is where our position is, obviously. I don't know that most people are free Palestine in the United States because there's a lot of propaganda that would convince you otherwise. Yeah. But for those that are, I think most people are not pro-Hamas. For the record, I think the online internet discourse just is not reflective of what people really believe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And oh my God, though, it's just, again, I couldn't stand the DSA posting the fucking dude in the parachute. Like, come on, man. Like, that DSA, they try so hard to be like a legitimate organization. And then they do shit like that.
Well, and it's like, yeah, that especially matters for organizations within the United States to have the correct take because you are appealing to audiences in the U.S.
Like the DSA, the socialist organization that people like think of when they think about, I don't know, our leftist causes and who helps people here.
The Democratic Socialists of America are not going to influence the foreign policy of the IDF, right? Like it's just not going to happen. Their goal is to amass more political power in the United States to influence policies of the United States. And you're not going to get the appeal that you need by saying like, yeah, Hamas is sick.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. It's in fact, morally wrong, as we've stated, but also optically, politics is all about optics. Not that good either. Not a good take to have. It's hard to be nuanced about Israel and Palestine, but that you're so far away from being it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just have a better take. It's not hard to have a good take.
Yeah.
Be anti-genocide axiomatically. Genocide's never going to be justified. Like, it's that simple.
Oh man, that's good. It's been a week, and it's gonna continue to be another week next week when we have more insane fucking takes to talk about.
Hopefully, it's not the same two stories again, because this is like the same breakdown.
I have a feeling that it will be.
Yeah,
it's just a feeling though.
What's up, guys? More Palestinians. This is a special preview for next episode. The IDF has killed more Palestinians, and we still don't have a speaker. That's been your preview for next week's episode.
That's it. That's October.
Yeah. That's all of October.
That's what happened in October. Holiday pregame. Whew, that's gonna be an intense one this year.
Oh man. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of this episode, which means that we have to once again thank the people that keep the glow of the lights on us.
That's right.
Keep the studio illuminated. That really are the only reason that I can eat.
Exactly.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, the only reason I can do this is my only source of income, guys. Please.
I wish it was
name on this list. Get your name on this list amongst the likes of Caden Kraut, Lord T the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, 40% Spite, Dylan B, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Kaz, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W., Fergalaki, Max Vezquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cuts, Gregory Isn't My Name, Veryuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Benneth Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Moises T, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Jonathan Cassis, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarlson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Sines, Aaron and His Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Aiden Taylor, Corey Chambers, Sewer Snack, L.E.N., John Glover, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Meatball Minion, Emma the Dew Slayer, Claire McMillan, Breezy B, Veronica, a.k.a. V,
Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grotler, Magic Ian 95, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Three Crows in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gone, Aquana Don, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Ishi Teddy, Cami, Calliope, Reagan Not Like the President, Pagan Jester, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Pab the Pab 69, Kayla Lowe, Anna Volinick, Eduardo Diaz, Casey C, Say Yes to West, August, Natalie Valinsky, Particular Pickman, Mason Crack, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brendan Izeg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Evan Molika, Zen Doing Their Best, Jackie Boy, Shameless, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon.
100%.
Sticking with us as we talk almost purely about geopolitics.
Making good on our name, the number one geopolitics podcast. We got merch about it.
You might as well buy a shirt.
You might as well buy a shirt because we're the only ones.
We're moving product. That's all I'm going to say. We are moving product. I know I'm not trying to take advantage of a major geopolitical humanitarian crisis, but bills to pay, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Drip to wear.
Drip to wear, bills to pay. More importantly, drip to wear.
Exactly.
You might as well
Most
get
importantly,
it
let everybody know that you listen to the number one geopolitics podcast with the number one takes on geopolitics issues.
Headintheoffice.com, baby. It's all there for you.
It never should have been this way.
No, never should. Shouldn't have been us. Should not have been us. Anyways, thank you all for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you next week.
Have a great week.